Former President
Oh, Donnie boy. Oh, Donnie boy.
Former President Donald John Trump started his criminal trial. We broke history again. The only president to never win a popular vote. The only president to be impeached twice. The only president to, I mean, fucking all the lawsuits and stuff. Lost more staff members. Tried to throw an insurrection on the United States government.
You know what? He's just a record setter, that's for
He's a
sure.
trendsetter, sure. And now he's the first president to be criminally indicted and facing federal court. He's been in court the last 2 days. They're doing jury selection, and his trial starts officially next week. But he's got to sit there through all of it. And apparently, he's having kind of a rough time. And we're going to jump in with Ben Mysalis and the Midas Touch. We like them. They're lawyers. They know what they're talking about on this stuff better than we do. So
of the 2016 election, and that's where he made the hush money payments to an adult. Trump lost numerous motions early in the day, and then he fell asleep for many minutes in the morning session, and then fell asleep over and over again in the afternoon. He could not stay awake. Occasionally,
I love it because he's been calling Joe Biden Sleepy Joe through this whole thing, and now it's like he's in court. He can't even stay awake, and he's being criminally charged. He's looking at years in prison, and he's like,
Like, okay, I really desperately want to make fun of him, but that actually is sort of like concerning to me because we've talked before about his, potential mental slash medical state and like whether he's actually like really doing all right.
yeah.
I mean, it's a little funny, but like if you're literally not capable of staying awake through your own freaking criminal trial at the beginning of it, even we're not talking this is droned on for months and months. Like this is the beginning of it.
Yeah.
Like what's going on, man? What's going on?
Look, I can understand that maybe he's old. He's stressed about it. He's stressed about a lot. He's got a lot of shit on his plate right now, and maybe he was up all night. Whatever, it could happen. So, he's old though. I mean. But I've seen Biden stays awake through these meetings, so, so, so I don't know what to tell you.
Right, they're both old.
So Sleepy Don having some trouble in court.
he would kind of all of a sudden wake up and then be very kind of jarred by everything that was going on, and then he would go back to sleep. And following the proceedings, Donald Trump then proceeded to do what Donald Trump does, which is whine about everything and to lie and to make up things. Here's what he posted after the first day and into the evening hours. I'll just share with you a few because you get the point that this is what he posts over and over again. He goes, "Who will explain for me to my wonderful son Barron, who is a great student at a fantastic school, that his dad will likely not be allowed to attend his graduation ceremony, something that we have been talking about for years, because a seriously conflicted and corrupt New York State judge wants me in criminal court on a bogus Biden case, which, according to virtually all legal scholars and pundits, has no merit and should never have been brought. This fake case is solely..."
Oh my God, they're so long. He's like a 13-year-old girl. Who posts shit that much? I've never even really used Twitter. I have an account. I think I've been on it twice. I mean, I never really did anything with it.
I have used Twitter, but like nobody's composing tweets this damn long. This is like a freaking whole like Facebook post. What is this?
Yeah, the whole thing with Barron too was so he's tried everything to delay this. As much, I mean, they filed what, a dozen something motions. All of them got shot down. They were all stupid. My favorite one, my personal favorite, was, "Your Honor, we've run out of things to write motions about, so we need more time to think about bullshit motions to write to delay this case." Was basically the argument of the motion. It was really funny. I can't remember exactly how they phrased it, but that's the gist of what they were asking. We need more time to think up things to say. Sure, I'll delay it so you can think of more shit to say to delay it. Yeah, the judge shot that one down. He shot them all down so far. But the whole thing with like, Well, he wants to go to, what was it? He wants to attend this thing or that thing, or he wants to go to his son's graduation. Can we delay it or for his son's graduation, or can we give him that day off? And the judge is like, no. It was a criminal trial. No. You know, because you got, once they pick it, it's going to be 12 jurors plus 6 alternates, and they've got to fucking be there every day. The attorneys have got to be there, right? We're going to, what, we're going to take a break day and dick with all these people's schedules so he can go to his son's graduation? No. Nobody gets this. I mean, if you were on trial for DUI or something, even something petty, like stealing a candy bar, they wouldn't no, I got to go to my son's graduation. No. Sorry. You got to comply with the court.
Back to this I can't stay awake thing. Like, if he can't stay awake for his own freaking criminal trial, is he going to be able to stay awake for, like, some really important international meeting? Or
well,
is he going to be falling asleep during a freaking, like, dinner party? Or
the graduation thing will come up again. I just want to set it up for a second because it's funny. So,
oh my God, okay.
Yeah, but that was his excuse. And who's going to explain it to my son? Oh, well, the way it gets explained to the kid when dad misses graduation because he's on indictment for business and election fraud, it's the way every kid gets it explained to them. Their mom tells you your father's going to prison. Every other American does it when they go to prison. Why should you be?
Well, God, you know what? In this case, it's going to be probably explained to him as, well, son, let's just say mommy's about to become free again.
Right, exactly. Mommy's going to have a dating life again and meet your new daddy. No, she'll stay with him for the money. I mean, she's gonna clean up. Anyway, so that was day one of the trial. Now, Fox and Friends had a really hard time on Fox News. The conservative news was really, really struggling to deal with their guy, their hero, looking at going to prison. And it's a pretty good case. I don't know how he gets out of this one, but if he gets out of this one. But Fox News, Fox and Friends had some struggles dealing with it. We're going to watch this for a second because it just cracked me up.
Opportunity to throw this out based on standing?
Well, he could have thrown it out on a number of grounds, but one thing that I'm concerned about and troubled.
Okay, wait. So, first thing up, could they have thrown this out on standing? Okay, standing is you have to have a reason to go to court, right? You have to have a case, basically, in standing. But it's usually, you don't hear it in a criminal case, you hear it in a civil case. Do you have standing to bring a case? Can you show that there was an injury done to you or a loss or financial or whatever, right? In a criminal case, the standing is implicit. The standing is, we're accusing him of committing a crime. That's the standing. Yes, I think there is a legitimate interest of the people to prevent crime. Go ahead.
Am I correct in my understanding that standing usually is more potentially problematic where like lawsuits and such are concerned? Like, yeah. Is that where standing comes up for?
Civil trials, yeah. In a criminal trial, the prosecutor has standing, otherwise there wouldn't be a prosecution. Right? So, I mean, it's just a stupid question. Was there a question of standing? No. The prosecutor brought the case, a grand jury decided on it. Standing's been determined that, yeah, there's a reason to believe he committed a crime. That's what we're here to figure out. We know the answer, he did. But Michael Cohen already went to prison for this. Other people have already been convicted of this. We know he did this. This is not like a new thing. But I love how they're trying to find their way to justify this, right? Or and it's not even to justify it. It's more just what's that glimmer of hope that maybe he'll get away with it. That's what this is.
By in this case is the judge could have taken a look at this indictment and said, hey, you got to take this back and you got to make this more particularized because it's unclear to me what he actually did. What's the underlying crime? How are we at a felony stage when the statute of limitations has run on, the misdemeanor part? So he could have.
Okay, so this is their legal editor for Fox News. Now, not only they bring up, standing's an issue, it's not in a criminal case. So fuck that one up. That's like basic law school first class kind of, that's pre-law shit, right? Second, her argument is, well, the judge should have looked at this and gone, why is this a felony? What are the particular charges? I mean, they didn't list the particular charges. First off, yes, they did. They always list the particular charges. So I'm going to jump over here real quick. So this is the district attorney's actual webpage. This is Manhattan DA's webpage. District Attorney Bragg announces 34-count felony indictment of former President Donald J. Trump. And they explain what the counts, they don't do them by count on this part, but this is just the press release. But they go through it. So Trump is charged in New York State Supreme Court, indicted with 34 counts of falsifying business records in the first degree. Okay, people of the state of New York allege that Donald J. Trump repeatedly and fraudulently falsified New York business records to conceal crimes that hid damaging information from the voting public during the 2016 presidential election. Manhattan is home to the country's most significant business market. We cannot allow New York businessmen or businesses to manipulate their records to cover up criminal conduct. As the statements of facts describe, the trail of money and lies exposes a pattern that the people allege violates one of New York's basic fundamental business laws. As this office has done time and time again, we today uphold our solemn responsibility to ensure that everyone stands equal before the law. Okay, so there's 3 instances. Instance 1, all right, America Media Inc. paid $30,000 to silence a Trump Tower doorman who claimed to have a story about a child Trump had of wedlock. This turned out to be bullshit, but they still bribed the guy because they didn't want it to get into the press for the election. This was right before the election, the 2016 election. The second one was they paid $150,000 to a woman who alleged that she had sexual relationship with Trump. This is Karen McDougal. This was the Playmate woman. They paid her off for the story, and that it was a catch and kill scheme. And so she had to sign an NDA on that. So they covered that up. And the third instance was Stormy Daniels. 12 days before the presidential general election, special counsel wired $130,000 to an attorney for an adult film actress. This is what Michael Cohen went to prison for. Now, I just read through this whole thing. I'll skip the rest of a lot of the shit for you. It's a really simple thing. If you falsify a business record in New York, it's a misdemeanor. Still a crime. You can't falsify your business records because it's misleading, right? But if you falsify it in the commission of another crime, it instantly becomes a felony, right? So, falsifying 34 counts of falsifying business records, but each count was to cover up these indiscretions of his, and he did it illegally to manipulate the election. So it's election interference on his part. The shit he always accuses the left of, that's what he did. And that's what Michael Cohen will testify to, and everybody else. And so, Stormy Daniels, all that. This happened. We know it happened, but the thing about it is that's what he did it. That's what they have to prove in court. Because if they can prove that he did it specifically to cover it up for the election, which is going to be really easy to prove, because everybody will testify to it, and nobody's going to really testify against it. Unless Trump gets on the stand, which would be horrid. He'd convict himself. That's basically it. That's basically the crime. It's a really simple, even... I love how that she's like, well, they weren't specific enough. Are you kidding me? They gave us little charts in their fucking press release and in what they gave the judge. Let's see if I can get this to blow up a little bit. There we go. People versus Donald Trump. Step 1, $130,000 hush money payment. This is what's to Stormy Daniels. Step 2, 34 counts of falsifying business records, checks, invoices, and general ledger entries. That's the misdemeanor. Step 3, intent to commit or conceal another crime, including state and federal election laws. That makes it a felony. And Step 4, falsifying business records in the first degree. Boom, it's a felony. That's it. That's the specific charges. And I love it. Well, the judge should have said they should have been more specific. They drew you a fucking map.
Right. They made you a flow chart, Donnie, a flow chart.
That's not him. It's this woman, Carrie Kupek, on Fox News.
Oh.
Carrie, flow chart. There it was. Judge did it for you. You're the legal analyst. You should know that. I didn't go to law school.
That's what I do for my students when I want to simplify it.
I followed that. It's simple. It's like okay, if I go into like Lacey's house, I go in without her knowing, I'm just trespassing, which is a misdemeanor. But if I commit a crime while I'm in there, it's burglary, and now it's a major felony. Right? So if I just walk in, okay, it's a misdemeanor, right? But if I go in there and I like steal something, or I threaten her or something like that, boom, instantly becomes a felony. And I'm looking at years in prison. That's all that's going on here. Falsified the business records, okay, misdemeanor, slap on the wrist. But he did it to interfere with elections, violating election law. Automatic felony. That's what he's saying. That's the whole case. And he did it 34 times. So it's 34 felonies. So stupid. But they're struggling to cope with this. They are really having a hard time.
Easily sent that back to the lawyers and said, come back to me with something more specific so that the defendant in this case actually knows what's going on.
And the clock was not ticking during the pandemic. They put everything on hold, or else the statute of limitations would have run out?
Yeah, it ran out during that time. And now, his predecessor didn't bring the case at the time. Now has said in subsequent interviews, well, it's because the pandemic and SDNY told me to stand down. But everyone now, after the fact, is explaining why they didn't actually do it at the time.
Right.
Unbelievable.
Okay. So that's her third bullshit argument. It ran past the statute of limitations. And I'll get into why that's bullshit. But here's what I love about this. They're trying to defend Trump. They bring her on, their legal analyst. I guess this is Lawyer Barbie. So Lawyer Barbie comes on. And her first one is, well, maybe there wasn't standing. Okay. Wrong. It's stupid. It's a criminal case. Doesn't really apply here. I mean, it does, but not in the way she's saying it. Two, okay, well, I don't think the DA was specific enough on the charges. Right, so the judge should have dismissed it. And then three, well, it's been so long, it's past the statute of limitations, they should have just dismissed it. Which is also bullshit, like the second. But you know what I love? They bring in the legal analyst to defend Trump, and at no point does anybody say he didn't do it. At no point is it, well, the evidence is going to show he didn't do it, or I don't think the case is strong for XYZ reason. That's how desperate they are here. They know he's fucking guilty as shit. They're just trying to find a way to wiggle around it. As for her last thing about the statute of limitations, so, where did I put that? So Fox News, here it is. So that's Fox and Friends, Fox News, one of the most watched cable networks. Hundreds of millions of dollars. Their anchors make millions and millions of dollars. They have limitless resources. And to answer her question about the statute of limitations issue, here's the local NBC News Center in Maine, who has almost no budget, as you can see. And these people are not making millions, as you can see by their clothes and their set. And they're going to explain it for us.
As Donald Trump was indicted, there have been a lot of questions about his upcoming trial and the impact the charges may have on his presidential campaign.
Recently, some social media users have said that Mr. Trump's case should be thrown out due to the statute of limitations. Here's our...
Okay, so that statute of limitations thing, because I was wondering, where the fuck did she get that? Because I didn't see it. They just reported it. Some people on social media said it should be thrown out because it's no legal scholars, no lawyers, no analysts, just some guys and girls on social media saying we should forgive Trump. So we'll get back into it. Lacey froze. Well, we'll dive back in.
on detail with what we can verify.
In a Manhattan courtroom on April 4th, former President Donald Trump pleaded not guilty to 34 counts of falsifying business records. The charges stem from alleged crimes that occurred in 2017, more than 5 years ago. On social media, some people say that the case should be thrown out because there's a 5-year statute of limitations for felony charges in New York. This prompted a lot of questions and claims about how this applies to Trump's charges, like this one, suggesting that the statute of limitations can be extended. So let's verify. Can New York's statute of limitations for felonies be extended? Our sources are New York law, Rebecca Puris, attorney and legal editor for NOLO, Paul Schiff Berman, professor of law at the George Washington University Law School, and Jeffrey Kirchmeier, professor of law at the City University of New York's
and I love this. Low budget, local network news show, right? Not network. I mean, it's local television, right? It's network television.
Right.
No budget. She's got, okay, I went out and consulted 3 lawyers to explain this, because all these crimes would have happened in 2016, 2017 when he was running for president. Well, that means that it's been 7-8 years. The statute of limitations is 5, so it should be past it. But there are extensions to the statute of limitations, and that's in every state. And here's the 3 lawyers I talked to, and they all, or professors or academics, they all explained why.
School of Law. Statutes of limitation dictate how much time a prosecutor has to bring criminal charges in a case. Those time limits vary by state and the severity of the crime. In New York, the statute of limitations for falsifying business records is 5 years. Attorney Rebecca Puris says the clock starts when the crime occurs. So if Trump's alleged crime started in 2017, the clock should have run out in 2022. But under New York law, there are some exceptions that pause the clock and extend the statute of limitations for felonies, like if the defendant is not continuously present in the state, which legal experts suggest prosecutors could argue applied to Trump when he was in the White House from 2017 to 2021.
And that's every state. Because I could commit the crime, let's say burglary, and the statute of limitations is 7 years, let's say. And then I could go, well, I'm going to go down to Mexico. And I'm down there for 7 years, statute of limitations runs out, I come back. And they're like, no. I'm like, but it's past the statute of limitations. No, it was paused while you were out of the country, or out of the state.
Right.
You weren't in our jurisdiction. Now that you're back in our jurisdiction, it's back on. So, I mean, every state does that. So that's not a new one.
And the governor can also issue an executive order to pause the statute of limitations, which then Governor Andrew Cuomo did during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we can verify, yes, New York statute of limitations for felonies can be extended. With your verify.
So the local network news with almost no budget verified that. Fox News with millions and millions upon millions of dollars brings on legal Barbie, and she's making some shit up that she saw on social media and doesn't cite the source.
They just sit and scratch their heads, all confused like.
But it just shows you how desperate they are. But I want to go back to this. So, was it this point? Yeah. So, this is Ben Marsalis again. So we saw day 1. Here was today, this morning, day 2. And Ben's going to jump in.
Trump also arrived to receiving this court document warning him that his failure to appear in court could result in his immediate arrest and imprisonment for contempt of court. The Manhattan District Attorney formally filed a motion for contempt against Donald Trump for violating the gag order by threatening and attacking witnesses like my co-host on the Midas Touch Network, the Political Beatdown Show, Michael Cohen, as well as Stormy Daniels. And then Donald Trump went and created more evidence against himself. He thinks these press conferences are helpful. I guess to his credit, it's the only time he's able to stay awake or during these press conferences, because we're learning again that he continued to fall asleep throughout the morning. But here's Donald Trump on Tuesday. I'm not going to show you the whole press conference, and I hate when the media does that because they spread his propaganda.
Right. I'm not even going to show you the press conference. I just want to get into that because it's so fucking good. All right. So, violated the gag order over the weekend before court. DA already filed. Yeah, I want you to said to the judge, I want you to find him in contempt for violating your gag order. Which he did on social media, so the evidence is there. It's blaring. 2, Trump got up and, I guess we could show the clip here, but he got up and basically told the press, well, yeah, I did funnel the money through illegal. I did commit the business fraud and funnel the money through a legal thing, but I didn't commit it. My accountant did it. But it's normal to do it that way. But I did do it to cover it up.
They're operating on your behalf, you moron.
Well, he just created a soundbite of him admitting to the fucking crime that he's being charged with. On day 2 and they haven't even fucking started the trial. It's still jury selection. Meanwhile, while he was in court during the jury selection, he kept falling asleep again. Well, watch this little clip because it just kills me how stupid he is.
So I always want to contextualize what it is that I am showing you first, which is Donald Trump incriminating himself.
We'll just get to it real quick because he kind of jumps. So here we go.
Every legal scholar said this trial is a disgrace. We have a Trump-hating judge. We have a judge who shouldn't be on this case. He's totally conflicted. But this is a trial that should never happen. It should have been thrown out a long time ago. If you look at Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, all great legal scholars, there's not one that we've been able to find that said this should be a trial. I was paying a lawyer and marked it down as a legal expense. Some accountant, I didn't know, marked it down as a legal expense. That's exactly what it was. And you get indicted over that? I should be right now.
Yes, that's the crime. I'm playing my little accordion while I explain this.
Yeah. What is that?
He always does. I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of want to. I was doing it with him to see if I could figure out what it's about. I don't know. I don't know what it's
seems
about.
like something a stroke victim would do. Somebody like, I want to have some hand gestures to make it more exciting, but I'm not good at jazz fingers, so I'm just going to do this motion. This weird, like I'm a T-Rex kind of, just weird shit. But no, he just confessed right there.
Well, here's the question. Do you want him chasing you or a T-Rex? You gotta pick one.
I'll take him. I could outrun his ass.
That feels fair.
He's a fat guy who's almost 80. Yeah, I'd be... T-Rex would probably kill me. But, oh man. So yep, confessing to crimes, doing it all. What was the second part of this? Hang on, I got it. Here it was. So, confesses to the crimes. This is just a shit show with this guy. I hope they put him on the stand. It'll be a fucking train wreck. So, the second part of this is, and Ben's going to cover this. So, they did some research. So, the graduation thing with Barron, that was his whole, I want to go to my son's graduation. And Alina Hobbit came up and said something about it. And Ben's going to tell you all about it and why it's so fucking funny. It's so funny. Oh, here we go.
Substantial sum, not 1.5 or $2 billion, but still $300-400 million. Look, that's a lot of money. But Trump would repeat that over and over again. So now in the Manhattan District Attorney case, what is Donald Trump repeating? Justice Merchan is not letting me attend Barron's graduation. I want to attend my son's for several years now. I've always wanted to attend. Who is going to tell Barron what has happened? And then Donald Trump has Alina Hobbit, because you have to have a lawyer who lacks any self-respect at all to spew just this utter and complete nonsense. So Alina Hobbit then goes on and she goes, he wants to see Barron, and Justice Merchan is depriving him of this great graduation. It's on May 17th, and Donald Trump really wants to be there for Barron. Play this clip.
Not even allowing a father, never mind a former president, but a father attend his son's graduation. And let's not forget Passover. Okay? Observant Jews have a right to go and pray to who they want and observe Passover. And this judge would not allow it, not for any of the attorneys. And there are observant Jewish attorneys on the Trump team and as well on the DA team. It's just a sad state of affairs for the American people. I can assure you of that.
Jeff Pearl.
Okay. Oops. I'm surprised he didn't call in sick. His lawyer's Jewish and it's Passover. And he's got to go to his son's graduation, and he's got that his book club is on Thursday nights, so we can't. I mean, how's he gonna get caught up on his reading? And And you know what? The only time he can do his laundry is on Wednesdays, so clearly Wednesdays are out of the picture too. Right. Laundry day. And his cat possibly laundry day. And his cat has gas, and he's got to take him to the vet. And how's Fluffy gonna get to the vet? Right. Just cracks. She's so full of shit. It's a woman who can't check a box. We know that for sure. But here's the graduation thing. Why it's so stupid.
Perlman did some great research. In 1996, Donald Trump Jr. graduated from Pottstown, Pennsylvania. From Hill School, Donald Trump did not attend that graduation. In 2000, Ivanka Trump graduated from Choate, a boarding school in Wallingford, Connecticut. Trump did not attend that graduation. In 2002, Eric Trump graduated from Hill School in Pottstown, Pennsylvania. Trump failed to attend that graduation. In 2012, Tiffany Trump graduated from Viewpoint School in Calabasas, California. Donald Trump failed to attend that graduation. Everything Donald Trump says is lies, and
he really wants to go to his son's graduation. He's 0 for 4. Let him have one, Judge. He missed the others.
Barron's his last chance.
Let my Donald go.
Oh my goodness.
Father of the Year. Here we go.
And then they did dumps. They call them dumps. Big, massive dumps.
Oh my goodness.
I love that sound clip so much. Oh man. So that was day 1 and 2 of Trump's trial. That's it. I don't know anything else. It's just so fun. It's just funny stuff. All right.
So if any of you want to watch Donald Trump take a nap, tune in to the trial footage.
God, I wish they would put it on film. It would.
That would be. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it'd be boring as crap. I don't know, but I feel like I could find some enjoyment.
Oh, it'd be boring, but all the exciting, like, revelatory, because all this sex shit and the salacious shit's gonna all come out. We're gonna hear about it, but it'd be really great to see it in court. And the media would be like, they'd grab that 2-minute or 3-minute clip and they just fucking run it over and over and over again. Anyway, so yeah, he's screwed. I hope they put him on the stand and he screws himself more, because he will confess on the stand. He just confessed to the press outside the courtroom. It just amazes me. Anyway, so we'll do a little bit of a downer news here, because I'm trying to give you guys a. See, we started with Iran, then we made fun of Trump. Now we got to do something negative. See, it's a news sandwich. We'll give you some bad news, some good news, some bad news, some good news, some bad news. See, so Supreme Court ruled the other day on a rule on a bill in Idaho that bans transgender teenagers from getting affirming care for transgenderism, which would be some medical treatment. It has to do with therapy and other stuff like that, hormone blockers, things like that. Stuff that's approved by the American Psychiatric Association, the American Pediatric Association, pretty much all medical associations, doctors, scientists. This is well proven, studied stuff. The Supreme Court said, you know what? You can ban it. So basically taking away rights from transgender children. Like, they don't have it fucking hard enough in this world. So we're gonna jump right into that.
We're learning the Supreme Court is letting Idaho enforce its ban on gender-affirming care for transgender kids, a law that could potentially put doctors behind bars if they give a child under the age of 18 hormones or puberty blockers or any other gender-affirming care. Lawrence Hurley is joining us now. Bring us up to speed.
Yeah, so basically the court divided, with the 3 liberal justices dissenting, has allowed this law to go into effect almost fully. What they're saying is that the 2 transgender teens who challenged the law, they can still pursue their claim, and it's not going to be enforced against them. But a district court went too far in saying that the entire law had to be blocked. And so that means that it can still be enforced against other people. And one key provision, which is one concerning a ban on surgery, which will remain blocked too. And the court says, among other things, that the 2 teens in this case had not said that they were requiring surgery anyway, which is one of the reasons why the law shouldn't be blocked as a whole. Those 2 teens were getting puberty blockers and estrogen, and they will still be able to get the care that they need. But anyone else in the state who maybe needs that care or would like surgery, who's in that same position, would not be able to get it for now.
Thanks.
So, just horrendous shit. I mean, kind of unnecessary. The one thing that I thought was interesting about this is that so many transgender kids, especially, the suicide rates are ridiculous. they're like 17 times more likely because they're so ostracized by society. And Idaho's horrible. I mean, it's a red state. I'm sure these kids have it rough. I actually looked at a couple studies. I didn't want to get into them, but I wanted you to sort of get into this to sort of prove my point. So this is Columbia Psychiatry from Columbia University, Irving Medical Center. So they wrote this article, Gender-Affirming Care Saves Lives. Growing legislation attempts to limit, ban, or criminalize access to this critical model of medical care endangers the health and well-being of transgender and non-binary youth. So research demonstrates that gender-affirming care, or medical and psychological health care designed to affirm individuals' gender identities, greatly improves the mental health and overall well-being of gender-diverse, transgender, and non-binary children and adolescents. Unfortunately, 22 has been a record-breaking year for legislation attempting to limit, ban, or criminalize access to gender-affirming treatment for transgender youth under 18. This week, the Arkansas State Senate passed a bill prohibiting doctors from treating transgender, non-binary, blah, blah, blah. So it's just higher rates of anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, like I just said. Rates of depression are just a opposition to efforts to restrict access to care, and they talk about what the opposition is, whether like hormone therapy and puberty blockers are kind of the big ones. Not a lot of kids get surgery. In some cases it might make sense, but typically like hormone blockers would be the more common one, and they always want to push this like it's irreversible and you can't do it. And once the kids start, it's not. We've been using hormone blockers since the 70s. Initially, they were designed for kids who had specific puberty problems or growth problems to prevent them from, being, injured. They needed them to be a little bit older and grow a little bit more gradually. So puberty blockers is when you go through puberty, all of a sudden, if you're a guy, it's testosterone. If you're female, it's estrogen. Your body starts producing large quantities of it, right? And that's kind of where your sexual sort of self gets developed, right? Because all of a sudden, it's like, I remember when I was a kid, it's like girls, one moment they weren't there, and the next moment they were everywhere. Right? It's like, it happens. It just goes off. So what they do is... Go ahead.
I just want to, put real human form to this, all of this, information and data and all of that. These are real teenagers. These are real people. And there's a transgender person in my life that is a teenager and was really a very late bloomer and did not get access to the puberty blockers that they wanted, and started menstruating and really had quite a mental breakdown, became incredibly suicidal, had to be hospitalized for suicidal ideation, multiple attempts. So, it's easy for people to blindly decide that they should be able to not allow teenagers to do X, Y, Z, but not really peel the onion back and look at the other layers of, what it is you're dictating and what other issues might be caused. Why not let parents and doctors, make these choices as opposed to, blanket legislation against entire groups of people?
Well, and I would even go further to say, I think if you have medical doctors, they should be able, even if the parents want to stop the child, and a medical doctor deems it's necessary in whatever case that might happen. I don't know what it would be, but I would defer to the medical professionals, because the way it works with puberty blockers is they give them to the kid right before about the time they're going to start puberty, and the idea is to buy more time for therapy so the kid can have a chance to decide, okay, am I male, or do I identify, well, I mean, they're male or female at birth, but do I identify as a man or a woman, right? A boy or a girl. And they can continue with that while the kid gets a little older and starts to develop their own identity a little bit more. Because when you're 11, 12 and you start puberty, you're not really, you're still kind of, attached to your parents. It's not until you become a teenager you start kind of forming who you are a little bit more. And so psychologists, their whole argument is, okay, so we'll do a little bit more of that, and then by the time they're 13, 14 or 15, right, they're a little bit more mature, and they can make that decision, then we can decide, okay, is it appropriate to go through with gender transition and give them estrogen or testosterone, whatever it is, depending on what gender they choose, or was it a phase or something that happened and they changed their mind or whatever, and the gender dysphoria just went away, and it wasn't that they weren't really transgender, they just were confused or something. And in that case, either way, you take them off the puberty blockers, and then you either give them estrogen, testosterone, or you don't. You know, puberty hits them like a freaking truck, and that's what happens. And so, I mean, they've used it for other reasons, but they've been doing this for years, and it's. The thing about puberty blockers is totally reversible. You just take them off and then they go through puberty. And it's pretty instant, right? It happens pretty quick. But to get puberty blockers and to get that kind of treatment, you're talking about years and years of therapy. And psychologists. And we're not talking about one opinion. You're talking about you have to have multiple psychologists agree, right? Because they don't want to do that and accidentally push the kid one way or the other if that's not the case. It's not one you want to fuck up. Right? So, I mean, just by denying that, though, to these children, more of them are going to commit suicide. They're going to get harassed more in school. They're going to have a harder time growing up because they'll be pushed into a sex and an identity that they don't identify with. Just because that's how they were born. I think it's just horrific. Fucked up shit. I didn't really have anything else to add, but, you know, once again, the shitty Supreme Court that we have overruling doctors. We know better.
Just let the doctors be the doctors.
Yeah. Well, I don't know why we're deferring to a court that won't defer to experts. You know.
Well, I don't want the court making any medical decisions for me. I want it to be between me and doctors. I mean, this feels really obvious to me.
Yeah, it just seems like one where it's just weird shit. Anyway, so I just wanted to go through this, just how stupid this whole thing is. So in Idaho, let's see, it's about 1.3 million adults in Idaho. About 0.5% identifies transgender among youths 13 to 17. In the total U.S., it's about 1.4% because it's a little bit more accepted now, so you see more people coming out. So that's 300,000 kids between 13 and 17 in the entire United States. Right? It's like 1 out of 100 children. It's very rare. It's not super common. So if you factor this in, just in Idaho, you're talking about we're going through this whole bill, this whole law, to basically take away medical treatment and rights in Idaho from 6,500 children.
Yeah, that's spending a lot of time and energy and resources trying to take some rights away from
a small group.
A very small group of people and kids at that. Like, come on now.
Yeah, this is like using a battleship to kill a mosquito. It's ridiculous. And even then, it's like the mosquito's not hurting anybody. The mosquito just wants to live its life. I mean, but yeah, not to compare transgender people to a mosquito. I'm just saying it's overkill for something that shouldn't even be happening in the first place. Just to show you how ridiculous the whole thing is. And it's not an issue that wins at the polls, but the Republicans still seem stuck on this for some reason. But you're talking about 6,500 out of 465,000 children in Idaho. It's just, it's stupid. Whole thing's stupid. But let's skip to something fun here. Once again, news sandwich. So, while the Republicans are assholes and their Republican justices are assholes and taking away rights from women and trans people and gay people and, you know, all that stuff. Meanwhile, the Republicans in the House, little less organized. Once again, we'll cover this. They had an 8-seat majority, ousted Kevin McCarthy. He quit. A couple other guys quit. It was narrow. It was down to like, ooh, they only had a 3-seat majority. Okay, getting tight. The house is big, so 3 seats, not very much. Now 2 guys just quit, so now they have a 1-seat, 1-vote majority. And they've gone through Kevin McCarthy. They went through like 3 or 4 speakers to try to get a vote, and they finally settled on Mike Johnson, or everybody calls him MAGA Mike Johnson because he's such a Trump supporter. But they started all attacking each other because Marjorie Taylor Greene just wanted to file, or she's pressuring to oust Mike Johnson. So the second speaker to be ousted within a year, right? Less than a year. And for the same reason, because he covered the budget deal. But so they're tearing each other apart, and we're going to watch some clips of Kevin McCarthy and stuff and jump right back and forth. But this is some funny shit. So we will jump right in.
Taylor Greene is not backing down on her threats to unseat House Speaker Mike Johnson. This morning, she sent a letter to her Republican colleagues trying to build support for ousting him. Johnson of failing to deliver on promises and breaking legislative procedural rules. This comes just one day after a town hall.
If I had it my way, we would have impeached him a long time ago.
What was that?
I said she just can't stand not being in the limelight. I feel like with her, it's like an attention-seeking little kid. Like she's just gotta like raise some sort of issue just to hear her own freaking voice, and so people will look at her. Well, literally.
That's a lot of what it is. We talked about that last time. It's the they don't want to govern. They just want to be popular and famous, and so they're willing to attack each other and eat each other alive to try and get it, because there can be only one. There's only so much TV time, and they got to fight each other for it, right? But it's fun to watch, because it's like, I always use this analogy. It's like if I'm watching the Nature Channel and it's like a cougar hunting a deer, I'm like, I've seen it before. We know what's going to happen. But if it's a spider and a centipede going at it, I am fucking in. Because that could go either way.
Like the Big Brother house.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the Big Brother house. I feel like I'm not gonna lie, if they did like a Big Brother house of like just some of these like crazy ass Republicans, I would watch that all day long.
George Santos, oh god,
like
I'm throwing wine at each other.
Such a viewing party. Can you imagine can you imagine some of the drinking games you could come up with? Oh gosh, your liver. Oh, my liver hurts just even thinking about a drinking game while you were watching like the Republican Big Brother house.
No shit.
It's a wonderful, terrible idea.
Oh.
Just saying. All right, tell us in the comments below. Would you watch that? Would you be a part of my work party and watch that? I would watch that.
Every time they say immigrants, you got to take a drink, and everybody's dead of alcohol poisoning in 20 minutes.
Drinking game optional. For our sober friends, I support you. But if you want to make that a drinking game,
right?
That's some pretty funny.
Well, so here's another one. So Kevin McCarthy, who was ousted. Now, he was ousted by Matt Gaetz, who started that whole vote of no confidence to get him out of there. Matt Gaetz, though, you remember, Matt Gaetz was charged, well, not charged, but he was accused of sex trafficking, illegal sex trafficking of a minor, where he hired a 17-year-old prostitute, took her out of the country to have sex with her. And he's known as a lech in hiring prostitutes. He's well known for all that. But Kevin McCarthy, who left Congress now, who after he got ousted and felt like shit, he's being interviewed, and watch what he responds to.
And I'll give you the truth why I'm not speaker. It's because one person, a member of Congress, wanted me to stop an ethics complaint because he slept with a 17-year-old. An ethics complaint that started before I ever became speaker, and that's illegal, and I'm not going to get in the middle. Did he do it or not? I don't know. But ethics is looking at it. There's other people in jail because of it. And he wanted me to influence.
So, I love how he does this, because he's such a douchebag, too. But that's what happened. There was an ethics complaint against Gaetz. Gaetz went to McCarthy and said, you got to quash that shit. And McCarthy said, no, I'm not going to do shit about it. And that's why Gaetz ousted him. As soon as he saw an opening.
Republican gone wild.
But I love how he does this too, where at first he says, it's an investigation because he slept with a 17-year-old. That's a fact. He slept with her. That's the way he says it. And then he walks it back and goes, well, wait a minute. He hasn't been convicted or anything yet. So, okay, I don't know that he did it. Right? But he knows. He knows he did it.
Okay, yes, you're right. He totally walked that back. But whether it's not his job to know whether the guy did it or not. It was his job to, let the committee do the committee's thing.
Right.
Like,
right.
Whether he did it or didn't, whether he knew it or didn't know he did it is kind of almost neither here nor there compared to the idea that this is what this committee does.
Oh, no.
This thing was in front of them.
I know. I think that he did the right move on that. Let the committee do it, right? But the other, thing, but that's the whole deal. But that was his spiel, and he's right. The whole case involving Matt Gaetz, the two of the guys that were doing this shit with him, both of them did prison time. I think one of them is still in prison for this. So Matt Gaetz got away because he's a congressman. So, I mean, it's just, the whole thing's just messed up. But, yep. And then we'll watch this one again because it's just love. Nancy Mace attacking her, Kevin McCarthy, because Kevin McCarthy supported a guy who primaried her, and she almost lost her seat, and she's still pissed about that. So here's her yelling at Maria Bartiromo about it.
McCarthy recruited a puppet to run against me in my Republican primary. You can go to puppetcatherine.com. He recruited somebody that can't win a general election in a purple district. Yes, he's a disgraced former speaker.
Don't you think you all should stick together in some ways? You are hanging on by a thread in the majority. When are you actually going to unite as a party and get things done?
Right, I agree, which is why Kevin McCarthy shouldn't go after fellow Republicans that can win in general elections in purple seats. You can go to nancymace.com.
I love that so much. Don't you think you guys should unite? I agree, we should unite. But Kevin McCarthy's a piece of shit and should be ousted. Real unifying there, Nancy. Real unifying. I want to remind everybody, this is a woman who wore a red A on her T-shirt in Congress because it was because the Scarlet Letter, because she wasn't allowed to speak. It was like, everybody made fun of her because that's not what that book's about. It's nothing. It made no sense. She's also the one who's been yelling at her staff that I have to get 3 to 5 cable hits, be on television 3 to 5 times a day. That's more important. She's passed nothing. She's pledged nothing. She's done nothing. She's never pushed a bill, but she's working her ass off to get on network television and cable television as many times as possible. So, voters, that's your Republican Party. Those are your options. That's the other side.
Seriously.
I've got like dozens more. I'm just not going to take time.
Well, it's no wonder that in recent years, people who have been lifelong Republicans have been leaving in droves, I know people personally that were lifelong Republicans that in recent years have just been like, man, this party is just like, it now seems to stand for shit that it didn't before, or that they just
eating each other alive. They
consider themselves conservative, but they just can't bring themselves to attach to that anymore.
Yeah, they're just crazy people. Crazy. I like to see it though. I think Democrats really solid chance of taking the House. Senate's kind of up in the air. But it's starting to look better because they're going after each other for the abortion shit. They're going after each other for the trans shit. They're going after each other for their own crimes. They're going after this person's not MAGA enough. This person's too MAGA. They're eating each other. They're cannibalizing each other. This is what happens when you let the crazies and the white supremacists and the nationalists and the evangelical Christian, all the fucking nutbags. This is when you pander to them because they're consistent voters. I get it. And they're a solid base, and they give a lot of money, even though they don't have it. But
it's become like mad cow disease of the 90s, Well, literally.
Well, it started happening under Reagan, and then it got really bad under Bush, and then the fucking Tea Party, and we thought, oh God, it can't get any crazier. And every time we say that, it just they go fucking hold my beer, and they go way the fuck down. They go nuts. And so, I like it. I mean, it's hopefully they eat each other alive, and because we don't need a right wing party anymore. The majority of the country's not that way. What we need is the Democrats to be the moderate right wing party, and we need some sort of left wing party. That's what I think. But that's just my opinion. Anyway, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Cool? All right, so we're back. Fun. And we have, since we covered the news, it's time to cover some financial news. Some good stuff going on in the world of finance. Yesterday, things were a little bit down. Inflation was a little bit hotter than expected, which is, the Fed's going to delay probably a little bit on doing rates. So that's kind of damaged the market over the last few days. But the Dow finally broke its sort of 6 days sort of semi-losing streak. It wasn't like terrible, but it was still, 6 days in a row kind of sucks. But, stocks are a little bit down today. Things are looking generally still good, though, for the market. The market's still way up for the year. But one stock in particular is having a really rough time. And that's Donald Trump's stock, DJT. The Trump media stock is in the fucking toilet. And I know it's terrible news for Donald. Terrible news. It's down, but I bet against it. I basically, went in.
Dumps. In Michigan and Pennsylvania.
So, took my dumps. And, yep, I'm kicking ass right now. But let's jump into this because his stock is tanking hard.
Tonight, Truth Social tanking. Donald Trump's shares today plunging more than 8. Tonight, Truth Social tanking. Donald Trump's shares today plunging more than 18%. The latest plunge coming amid news that the social media company is putting another 21.5 million shares up for sale. Company's bleeding money, so they want to issue more shares to raise the money. But of course, when you issue new shares, that means the already existing shares get diluted, they lose value. And the share price has already fallen by half. Trump himself has actually lost almost $3 billion since Truth Social went public less than 3 weeks ago, all on paper. Out front now, Dan Alexander, the senior editor at Forbes.
So, here's what happened. Two things happened. She didn't cover the second thing. The first thing was, we're losing money, so we're going to issue more stock. What you do, though, when you issue more stock, is it lowers the price.
Sure. The idea being, hey, we're just going to create more shares so people can buy more of them. Okay. But wait a minute. The company didn't become suddenly worth any more than it was before, right?
Right.
So I just made more out of the same value.
Right. It's the same thing. You're basically adding a number to the denominator, right? So if we're figuring this is the total value on top, is the numerator and then the denominator. So it's one of those things where if I have the total value is 1 and I have 2 shares that are for sale, right? The 2 shares themselves, 1 divided by 2, are each worth half, worth 50%, right? Or whatever it is, 50 cents, however you want to measure. But if I add a third share, now each of my shares are only worth 33%. So they went down from 50 to 33. So that's what they did to try and bolster the stock price, which makes no fucking sense.
As a strategy, like even in the most, general sense, it doesn't make any sense at all.
No,
I mean, you can sell more shares, but
Right. The other thing
it doesn't do anything.
The other thing, just to remind everybody, the stock itself is basically Trump Media, which is just Truth Social, his social media network. It's like a Twitter knockoff. It really is just a knockoff of Twitter. And the thing about that is there's no value in that company. The company lost money last year. I think the gross revenue was only like $4 or $5 million.
Well, stop and think about it. Let's even backing away from the numbers. How many people have you heard say, "Oh my God, I read the greatest thing on Truth Social"?
Right.
Oh my gosh, you see what this person posted to Truth Social? Like, I don't hear people saying that. I mean, perhaps I don't run in those circles, but this is not a big winner in general.
I've been on it. It's weird. It's mostly like racist, white nationalists. It's like the, it's like the crazy uncle of Twitter. And Twitter's already really gotten really bad under Elon Musk. But like they don't even really. The only person who really posts shit is Donald Trump, and everybody goes to see what he posts, and that's what all their viewers are there. They're just there for Trump, and nothing else. And the thing about it is even when people post shit to each other or on Trump stuff, they don't post like sentences or paragraphs. They post memes that they saw. It's weird. It's like they have a weird, like, primitive language. It's just bizarre shit. It's like reading hieroglyphics. But yeah, it's just bizarre. But yeah, so that was the first thing they did, was they added more shares, diluted the total value. Second thing they did is this, and this was kind of the thing everybody was sort of semi-predicting. So this type of company is a special acquisition. So you start a company, a shell company, you try to buy a company to get it put public. These have been really popular the last 5 or 6 years. Might actually be worth trying at some point. So what happens is that company then becomes public. It takes over that stock position on the New York Stock Exchange or NASDAQ. In this case, it was NASDAQ. And so it's on NASDAQ, and the shares, people bought into it, and it was totally overblown. It started out at I think it got to 60 a share, right? And when they factor in the total number of shares, Trump owns 60% of it, but he has 114 million shares that he was given for this. So at 60, all of a sudden it's $6 billion, right? But now the stock is way down. So when she says nearly 3 billion, it's actually higher than that. So let me see if we can get into a chart here. But yeah, it's really tanked, and it tanked today. Bad. I mean, it's great. I shorted it, so I'm happy about it. My account is way up this afternoon. Let me get into this chart real quick. As it loads. All right, then let me not do a candle because that'll confuse everybody. Here we go. So this is 1 month. This is today. Right. This is the last 5. I mean, it's way down. So now it's down to 22.83. So Trump shares are now worth maybe 2 point something billion. So it's over 3, almost 4 billion that he's lost. Now, granted, that was all in paper. He never had it. Now, with these shares, when he gets them, because what ended up happening when they first started doing this is the owners would get these shares, and then they'd immediately sell and tank the stock price because they just wanted to cash out and get their money, which is smart. That's what you do. But the SEC and FINRA figured out, well, no, we're not going to do that. So we're going to set a new filing where if you're an owner, right, and you're issued shares, you have to hold them for 6 months before you can cash them out. So you can't do a pump and dump and screw over the investors. So Trump is locked into these shares, him and all the other owners. They can't sell them. So they're watching this thing tank, and they can't do a thing about it. They can't bail out at any point. What they can do is you can get rid of that 6 month holding period if all the major shareholders, right, the owners, vote on it. And so that's what they're doing right now, is they're voting on it so that they can start to get their shares out now because they want to get it out for the money. But when you do that, it's a public filing. So the investors have to know about it first, and then you'll set a date.
But as soon as the investors see this, what are they going to do?
They're going to bail.
They're going to pull their money out.
So right now, analysts are predicting, right now it's at 22.83. It went down from 60 to 22.83. It is a third, almost, what it was. I mean, it's way the fuck down. And now they're estimating at 22, it probably will go down to $2 a share in the next couple months.
I was going to say, my brain cannot think of the scenario in which this goes up.
No, I
can't concoct them.
I shorted the shit out of this. I'm doing great right now. So yeah, I'm happy about it. So Trump is, his stock's tanking while he's sitting in court falling asleep. It is just bad.
Yeah, so what are the odds that there's anything sitting there by the time he can cash out?
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, what ends up happening is, well, I mean, by the time he gets there, even if they do it early, like you said, the investors will bail, it'll tank. If he gets to it, he's going to bail out and get all the money he can in cash, and it'll tank. So either way, if that happens, or they announce it, that they're officially going to vote on it, my shares where I'm doing really well now, I'm going to go into making like a shit ton of money. So for me, it's all good news. Anybody who's shorted this, it's all good news. But for Donald Trump, it's bad. Plus, you got to factor in this. Let's say he gets the access to money. Let's say he gets it where it's at now, and he cashes it out, the whole thing, the $2 billion that it's at now. $2 billion is a lot of money, right? You're thinking, great, it's pretty awesome. What you don't know is that when he cashes it out, that's all ordinary income tax. So if you figure that out,
right? Because let's pause there, because he would not have held it for more than 1 year, right? 1 year is like a magic. It's a magic amount of time, right? If you've had it for less than a year, it gets taxed at the regular rate, as opposed to after a year, you pay less in taxes. So that's why holding it longer, at least over a year, is to your advantage, right? Tax-wise.
So that's $700 million in taxes he have to pay to pull it out. So now it's $1.3 billion that he'd be pulling out. Okay. Then on top of that fact, he owes, if his appeals don't go through, which they probably won't for E.G. and Carroll and for the court, that's another $600 million. Right? So now it's $700 million is maybe all he can squeeze out of it, and he's going to need every penny of that for the election, for his legal fees, to pay off the debts on his businesses, which are all tanking, which are all heavily over leveraged. So even if he pulls his money out today, it's gone. I mean, he'll try to hold on to it as much as he can, I'm sure, but it's gone. All it does is buy him some time. So we issued more shares to try and boost the stock. Stock still was tanking, right? That's what it did yesterday. Tank today. But to try and to boost it up, I woke up this morning to check my position, and the ticker had it for the after hours trading was up a little bit, and I was like, yeah, whatever, who cares? And they were like, well, Trump media made a big announcement this morning at 6:30 a.m. New York time, and this was it. It's just a fucking scam. I love this. Trump media shares tick higher amid plan to launch live TV streaming app. So they basically made a post and a thing where they said, hey, Trump Media Technology Group is planning to roll out a live TV streaming platform in phases, the Truth Social parent said on Tuesday. The social media company linked to former U.S. President Donald Trump will launch Truth Social's content delivery network for streaming live TV on the app for Android, iOS, and web in the first phase. It plans to release the streaming app for TV in the final third phase, the company said, without disclosing a timeline. It has carried out 6 months of testing of the technology, according to them. Shares of Trump Media rose slightly in the pre-market trading Tuesday, up 1.5% after the news, and then, as we just saw, immediately tanked. 15 or 14% today.
Oh my goodness!
Because it's bullshit. Oh, guys, we're gonna run it. We're gonna do TV and we're gonna do it on the streaming app and everything. And it's like, oh great, when are you gonna do it? We don't know, but we're gonna do it. It's gonna be great. You should invest now. Right before we get to a vote, where we're gonna steal your fucking money and take the shares.
Oh my. Okay, so Duncan, for any of our viewers that are newbies to investing, when you said you shorted it, explain what that means you did.
Oh, okay. So when you short something, you're betting that it'll go down. Essentially, it's trust me, kids. It's speculation. It's more akin to gambling than investing. In this case, it was
sure, because you might really not have enough information to have you don't really have a crystal ball on that. You're
right.
Kind of, it's your best guess.
Right. Typically, when you do a short, so you'll buy a short contract. This is the most common ways. You'll buy a short contract. It's called a put contract, because what it does is it gives you the right as the buyer to put the stock back onto the seller. So let's say I issue a put contract. Let's say I'm a big investor in the Donald Trump thing, and I had shares, and I don't want to sell them, or I can't sell them for whatever reason at this moment in time, but I want to hedge my position in case they go down, right? So what I'll do is I'll write a contract to put on the shares, right? So let's say the shares are at $52, and I write a contract that says, okay, I will buy the shares at $50, and one contract is usually 100 shares. All right, and so between now and some certain date in the future, which is called the exercise date, you can make me buy those shares back from you at $50 a share. So Lacey buys the contract. So Lacey wants the shares to go down. So she's paid me money. So now I've got her cash that's in my pocket. She can't get it back. It's mine now. So that's how I hedge my position. So I still got some cash even if the stock tanks. Right? So I'm hedged out a little bit. It's not, a ton, but it's enough to, stop the bleeding some. But Lacey has the contract. So now Lacey's got it. It's 52, but the price she can put it back, the strike price is 50. So Lacey's sitting there going, okay, if it goes below 50, now she's starting to be in the money, because she can then go, let's say it goes to 45. So Lacey can go buy 100 shares at 45 and then immediately turn around and make me buy them back from her at 50. So Lacey just made...
Because that's our arrangement. I let you utilize my money,
mm-hmm.
and I tied my money up.
Right. Well, you gave me
I couldn't do anything with it till it went down to 50, but then I can force your hand and make you buy this from me.
Well, no, I wrote the contract because I'm trying to get the money in case it goes down. For me, though, if it goes...
Right, but then I can turn around and exercise the contract, and you don't really have a choice at that point, because that was what you agreed to.
Right. Well, if it doesn't go down, she's never going to exercise because Lacey would be losing money. Right? And it wouldn't matter to me either way. So I would just get her cash and she'd be out. But if it goes down below that, then Lacey gets to exercise, or more commonly what happens is she'll just sell the contract back to me instead of going through the whole process of buying the shares and everything. And I'll just pay her what she'd normally get. And there's ways to calculate how that all works. There's models for how to do that. So, plus there's the time frame on the contract and all that. Lots of shit goes into this. So, the thing though is this, so let's say Lacey bought the contract from me for $500, okay? And now the shares go down and they're worth 45. Well, if Lacey exercises now at 45 or sells it back to me now, well, she's made $5 a share for 100 shares. She's made $500. So Lacey just broke even. She didn't make any money because I already have her $500. She just got it back from me. That's all that happened. So Lacey needs it to go below 45, below the strike price, and the cost of the contract before Lacey starts making money. So if it goes down to 40, now Lacey's selling them back to me for $1,000. She's up $1,000 or $500. She gets her $500 back plus then. So that's how those work. And then there are things called call options, which gives you the right to buy stocks from me at a cheaper price. And it's the reverse. You want the stock to go up. So, but that's one way to short a stock. There's other ways, but that's the more common one. But yeah, so that's what I did. So, but you have to register to do all that online and with a brokerage firm and all that, and it takes it. So if you're like, oh, I'm going to go do it right now, it'll take a brokerage firm at least 2 to 3 days to approve you of it before they'll let you do
plus
it.
this is not something. This is probably not something the beginner really wants to get into.
No,
you want to become really quite a bit more experienced before you're playing with that. But it's good to, for beginners to start to understand these sort of extra things that people do, for your own knowledge base, really.
Yeah, I'd go on to like Google Finance or Yahoo Finance. I like Yahoo Finance. It's a little bit easier to use. And you can do mock portfolios on there, and you can buy puts and calls and say, oh, if I bought $1,000 put or a call, what would it do? or $1,000 and puts in calls, what would they do? And then you can see what it does and whether or not your strategy worked. So.
Right.
Yeah, but I honestly, I don't recommend buying them unless you know what you're doing, because they are volatile and they're very dangerous. And you could lose money really fast.
And you would have to be prepared to be watching something much more carefully than just sort of like your average sort of buy and hold sort of situation.
Right, and since I'm on the West Coast, that's why I was up at 6 a.m. this morning, because if it shot back up and I was going to look like I might lose money or be in danger, then I need to bail. And if for some reason it just totally tanked this morning, and I'm thinking, oh, it's bottomed out, right? Once again, I'm guessing that it's bottoming out, but it's like, boom, it goes down to like $5 a share. I'm going to be like, fucking bail now and take all my money and get it out, because you want to time it.
Right.
So yeah, it takes a lot of effort and a lot of research to do this properly. And it's something like Lacey said, you got to be constantly watching it. I mean, I've got alerts on my phone, so if it hits certain prices, you know, like if I bail all of a sudden, you know what I'm doing. I'm getting my money out so I can win.
Duncan just in the middle of filming something, so he
we gotta take a
deal
break.
with
It's short sell. That's okay. The market's closed. Nothing's gonna happen right now. So I'm just saying.
Nothing's gonna happen right now. We're filming after the market is closed.
So anyway, bummer for Trump and all that. But you learned something about short selling, so now you know. So when somebody says I'm shorting this, that's what they're saying. I'm betting against it. I'm betting it'll go down. So let's skip on to, I want to do some like a little bit of economic stuff. So the Fed right now, Jerome Powell's the Fed chair, and there was some news about inflation was a little bit hotter than expected, and employment's still really, really low. It's still a tight labor market. Wages are growing pretty fast. So basically, Jerome Powell's sitting there going, okay, we were going to cut rates this year. They were hoping to do it 3 times. That's what they're doing. And now it looks like he was a little bit sort of indicated today they might be pumping the brakes a little bit on that. I'm sure they probably will later this year, but it's to what degree and how many times they do it. But they want to do it like slowly, because if you do it too quick, it could crash the economy. So, anyway, Trump's guy that he wants for the Fed chair is a guy named Art Laffer. Now, for those of you who didn't go to finance or economics in college or slept through it, you will know probably don't know this. Art Laffer is famous for being the guy that totally fucked the U.S. economy, one of the guys, under Ronald Reagan. And he developed this thing called the Laffer curve, and I'll get into that in a second. But I want to show you this, because Art Laffer is wrong about every fucking thing he does. He's never right. And here he is with my favorite douchebag, Larry Kudlow, Mr. COVID went away in the middle of COVID when 7,000 people died that day. Kudlow, who's on Fox Business, and he's such a douchebag. And here's 2 guys who never get anything right, that fuck everything up, talking about the economy. It just, and let me give you a time frame on this, because I found this clip and it just kills me. So this is 2 months ago. This is back in February. These 2 dipshits are talking about this.
Hey, folks, let's just jump right in. We got Kevin Hassett, former chair.
Oh, God, again with this?
We, the people of the United States.
We've moved so far away from the Constitution that in many ways we...
All right, 3, 2, 1.
Hey, folks, let's just jump right in. We got Kevin Hassett, former chair of the Council of Economic Advisors during the Trump administration, distinguished fellow at the Hoover Institution and author of The Drift, Stopping America's Slide to Socialism, and Art Laffer, former Reagan advisor and Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient.
So this guy is responsible for the immiseration of millions of people and the inequality gap in the United States. So when you sit there and go, why am I not making more money and why am I poor? And why are taxes so low on the rich and so high on me? This is the face that you should see, because this is him. Oh, wait, hang on, let me get into it. There he is, this is him. I was on me. My bad, guys.
And author of Taxes Have Consequences. I will begin with my dear friend Kevin Hassett. We've talked...
Let's skip Kevin real quick and we'll go into Art.
session to sort through, Kevin Hassett, former CEA chair. I mean, everybody got it wrong. And by the way, I'll raise my hand. I said either a big slowdown or a recession. I was wrong. That's all there is to it. Now, Kevin, what the heck happens next?
Well, I'm thinking about what happened 30 years ago. Because, you know, the problem with economics, right, is you look at the past data and then you assume that the data generating process for the past works going forward. But what happened 30 years ago, just about exactly 30 years ago, was Netscape introduced this web browser thing. And it was 1995. And the web browser thing.
Okay, so just to get into that kind of thing. So in economics, yeah, you're looking at past data because you're looking for trends. But the past does not necessarily reflect the future, because when you're in finance or economics, a lot of the math we do is hypothetical, because what you're really trying to do is predict the future. Well, the one thing nobody can do, one of the many things nobody can do. See, he's right about that, but what you got to factor in when you're making these projections and shit is you got to factor in what are the odds and what's different today than what was back then. So when he's talking about, okay, yeah, but in the 90s, when Netscape came out, it boosted the economy because the internet became a new thing, new technology. But at the same time, what he's not pointing out is at the same time in the 90s, we had a similar economy in the sense that rates were really high like they are now, and they stayed high through most of the 90s. But it was a huge booming era, and a lot of that was because of the dot-com era, and a lot of that was because when Clinton was president, Clinton was able to generate enough revenue by raising taxes a bit in order to, and he didn't balance the budget, but he brought down the deficit and created a surplus of cash. So the government was making more money than it was spending every year. And that's the last time that happened. But that's because the economy was so good. So you have a situation that's similar now, but what's the big thing that's happening now that might kick this whole thing off? AI. If AI comes through, and I'm not talking about like the Terminator, get that shit out of your head. We're talking about machines that just do more complicated stuff. That's it. They're not like self-aware. So if that comes through, that'll be a huge
Thank goodness.
Yeah, but that'll boost productivity through the fucking roof. And now all of a sudden I'd have a situation like we had in the 90s where you're kind of in a Goldilocks zone where, yeah, rates are high to keep inflation down as much as possible, but still wages are fucking shooting up and the economy's shooting up. And that would be an ideal situation. But let's go into, because Art's going to sit there and tell you that everything is bad. Because he knows. He's a freaking idiot.
Interests are wrong. Keynesians are wrong. Phillips curvers are wrong. You know, you had huge Fed tightening by any yardstick. And what happened? The economy got stronger. Okay, 2023 was a very good year. 2022 was not a very good year. In fact, the first half of 22 were negative GDPs. So inflation comes down.
Okay, first off, this is so stupid. Why was 2022 a bad year? Oh, I don't know, because we were all still fucking hiding in our homes from COVID and we were just getting the vaccines. Yeah, and then Kudlow and both of these dipshits both predicted there would be a huge recession in 2023 because Biden put excess stimulus by giving people cash, the American people, so we could stay home during COVID. But then when we got out, we had excess cash, so we spent more, and that shot up inflation because we had a little bit more excess cash. But what really shot up inflation was the businesses realized that and said, oh, now they're all out in COVID, they're spending, they have some excess cash, they've been all locked in their houses for a year, we can charge them whatever the fuck we want, and they'll pay it. And they did that. And so they drove up inflation to jack up their black on the balance sheet and fucked everybody over. But they didn't raise wages, and now they're fucking paying for it because the people are unionizing, people are demanding more wages, and now they're in a job shrinkage where there are more jobs than there are people. So now if they want to get people, they have to pay them a lot more.
Right.
So that's what's going on right now. So it's unique. You can't compare it to 30 years ago in an identical sense. Because 30 years ago, we weren't coming out of a pandemic. There wasn't a national crisis. None of that shit had happened. Right? That's not what fueled any of that. So you got to look at the circumstance. You can't just look at, well, it's sort of like this. on the numbers, well, yeah, but what caused it? And what do we think the outcome is going to be, and how that will affect things? It's intuitive. It's not like you just, and you're guessing. If you're even close to the target, it's great. It's like when I do a financial projection, if I'm even close, then I did my job. If I'm way off, then I got to figure out where I screwed up. And the real mind fuck is if I'm exactly right, then I freak out because I really screwed something up, or I got really lucky. I should never be fucking on the dot.
So
He goes up. The Fed's tightening doesn't seem to have mattered, Arthur. What happens here? Why? How are adjustments going to be made? Or maybe nobody should listen to economic forecasters anymore.
Well, I'd rather watch a weatherman myself, Larry. But seriously, before you get into the balloons, the streamers, and the party horns, this economy is not a great economy. It really isn't. Yes, we had nice growth this last year. Yes, inflation did come down. But the stock market today is at the same level in real terms as it was in March of 21. The participation rate is 62.5%, which is really, really low. It was like 67% when Clinton left office. Our GDP growth is not caught up to what it was pre-pandemic. And the worst one of all, life expectancy, is down about 3 years, which is really bad when you're 83 like I am. I really count on that life expectancy not going down. I want it up. But, look, this economy is not in good shape. It really isn't. The only thing that's really doing well is immigration, and it's hitting new highs every day. You can...
Now, I want to remind everybody, that was 2 months ago. All those numbers have flipped, and he's wrong. GDP is up. Life expectancy is actually starting to go up again. And that's not anything to do with the... there is economic factors that cause that, but it's not like a short-term thing. Those are long-term trends over time. And that has to do with people being able to get medical care, mostly. So all this shit he said, he was wrong. He was, it's a bad economy. It's not going to get better. It's like, no, up till 2 months ago, it was getting drastically better. But now we're starting to get above where we were when it hit, when COVID hit and tanked everything. It's a recovery period. And these guys have been predicting there wouldn't be a recovery, there'd be a huge recession. All three of these guys have been predicting that for years now. And they've all been wrong. And they keep being, all these other guys are wrong, all these other guys. But these guys are always doom and gloom. But then, like, when Trump is president or a conservative's president, the world can be on fire. We could be in the middle of COVID. They'll tell you how great the economy is. And nobody's working.
They'll be screaming, bumper crop. Yeah.
Yeah, but Art Laffer was also he was an economic advisor for Trump. And he's a fucking idiot. But just to give you a little bit more on this guy, because he's dangerous. He's a dangerous individual. And Trump's looking at putting him in charge of the Federal Reserve, where they get to choose what the rates are. That could be really dangerous if the Federal Reserve becomes political. So U.S. could be facing years-long economic turmoil, says Art Laffer. Didn't happen. This was June 2022. And he was wrong with his whole doom and gloom. Art Laffer, economic advisor for former President Ronald Reagan, told Newsweek that the economic downturn the United States has experienced may not be ending anytime soon. There is nothing that can bring an economy to its knees more than high inflation and high tax rates. Laffer said during a recent interview, I think today's economy looks worse than it did under former President Jimmy Carter. And you saw what happened following Jimmy Carter. We had a political revolution that led to a long era of prosperity with Reagan through President Clinton. Bullshit. Things were not good under Reagan. Things were bad under Reagan. Economically. Things were shit. And I'll show you guys just how bad it was. They had to cheat to try and lie to tell everybody the economy was good under Reagan. And he was one of those guys that did that. Okay, along with his noted work as an economist, Laffer has worked in academia and frequently discusses economic issues on news programs. He's known for developing the Laffer curve, a theory that illustrates the relationship between tax rates and the amount of tax revenue collected by the federal government. This is what I wanted to get to with this guy, because he's still pushing this. It's called supply-side economics, right? The concept is this. At a certain point, taxes are too high. Are you there? Did I lose you? He's saying at a certain... basically, he drew it on a napkin when he sold this idea to Reagan and the Reagan administration. Here, let me find it real quick. This This is what he drew. This is it. This is his whole theory. All right. On the left side is government revenue, right? The amount of taxes the government brings in. And on the bottom here on the x-axis is the tax rate. He's saying at a certain point, the tax rate, you get the best amount of revenue for the government. But if you go higher taxes, then what happens is people are less likely to want to work and make money. And people, because they don't want to be rich because they have to pay too much in tax. And so your revenue goes down because people don't want to be rich, and it slows the economy.
Who on God's green earth has ever been like, never mind, I don't really want to be rich because, a bigger percentage of my money will go away, even though I have still way, way more money.
And what he's forgetting is
left over.
The highest growth years in this country were in the 50s and the 60s, and then the 70s, before the oil embargo, which is what fucked over Carter, was OPEC. It wasn't so much anything that Carter did with it. The inflation rate was artificially jacked up by the oil petroleum exporting countries, because at that point we were wholly dependent on them, because we use like a quarter of all the oil produced, and we didn't produce very much back then. Now we export oil. We have so much. So it's a different era completely, in different scenario, in different circumstance. I mean, this is literally like, let's say you have two clients and they both are married with one kid, right? And you're saying, well, this worked for this couple, so it should work for you. But then you find out, well, one of the couples, their child is deaf and needs more expensive schooling. You're not going to budget the same thing for schooling. But that's what these guys are doing on an economic scale. As they're saying, oh, the 70s, it should be similar, but it's not. And it's stupid shit. But the whole thing with the Laffer curve was, when they did that, Reagan said, okay, we're going to lower taxes, and it'll be great. It'll be great for government revenue. And what happened? It didn't speed up the economy. It dragged greater into the recession, because they did that, because the government wasn't helping people, but then didn't have the resources to help people because it wasn't taking in as much taxes. So things got worse. If you ever watched Ferris Bueller's Day Off, there's this scene with Ben Stein where he's teaching him economics, and it's just droning on. He's explaining how Art Laffer fucked everybody in that movie, in that one little scene, and all the kids are falling asleep and stuff in class because it's boring. But he's explaining that, where this guy fucked up. That's how famous this guy's fuck up was. Is he was a joke in Ferris Bueller's Day Off for economists and finance people. It's a joke you guys wouldn't get unless you knew all that, but I was laughing when I was in school. I was like, that's what they were talking about in Ferris Bueller. That Art Laffer, that guy's a fucking asshole. Yeah, that's true. He's a total douche. And we're going to get into even more of the dark shit he did, but you have something to say?
And he's one that seems like he's just making stuff up, like just throwing crap at the wall to see what'll stick,
Well, he wasn't the first person to come up with it, but it's such a stupid theory, because that's all it is. And the huge assumption is that if you're going to tax them too much, then they won't want to work, which is the dumbest fucking thing. We've never seen that. Where people just like, well, you know what? I don't need to feed my kids and shit. I don't want to send them to a better school. I don't want to have a new car, right? Because the taxes are so high. So I'm just going to give up. No, what ends up happening is you put the taxes higher. Instead of pocketing that cash and paying the higher taxes, what do? I increase my net worth by hiring more people. Buying more assets, buying more shit. Well, not my general income. Because then I can borrow shit. I can borrow money off my shit that I own and not pay taxes on it. Which is what rich people do. They don't spend their own money. They borrow against shit they own so they don't have to pay the tax. That's the incentive, and that's how that works. But he doesn't understand that one little simple financial trick that everybody's been doing for the last 60 years. And that's what fucked his whole theory. And it really damaged the U.S. economy. And You want to talk about wealth inequality and wage stagnation? That's the guy, Art Laffer. His theory is what caused the wage gap and caused the damage to our economy. So, Lacey, how it was really tough for us because that's when the wage gap was really widening. It started in the 80s. And by the time we got to college and shit, we were in a recession and everything was tough. And it's like you could get a job, but it didn't cover your cost of living and stuff. Art Laffer and Alan Greenspan under Ronald Reagan. That's what caused that tax bracket and that thing when they allowed the rich to get richer without having to pay more. And it deregulated the government so much that, minimum wage was stagnant and nothing happened. This is the guy. This is one of the guys. It's one of the brain children, and this is who Trump wants in charge of the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, be afraid, people. Be very, very afraid.
So, let's do this. So, he's going to talk about the Fed here.
And, it's obvious that there's a difference between the executive branch and the Fed. And, it's going to go on as long as the Fed's independent. You're going to get these clashes, and always have had them, by the way. When I was in the White House in 1970, 71, 72, Nixon had this real big problem with Arthur Burns all the time.
That was weird. You there?
Yeah, you froze again.
Somebody tried to call on this line. I don't know how they got that.
That's what goes on there. And,
do you not think credibility in the US dollar and US government debt would be hurt if there was not an independent central bank?
Well, there might be. It might be. I mean, that's true. I mean, is it hurt by not having independent fiscal policy? Probably. I mean, they probably raise taxes way too much and spend way too much. If it were independent, they probably would spend less and tax less, which would make me happy. But I don't think that's the essence of what democracy is. I mean, I don't think an independent Fed run by academics.
So this is where he's so stupid on this. So let me explain this, kids. The Federal Reserve is a central bank. We were one of the last countries to get one. And we didn't do it like 1917. The British had been doing it, almost a century early. So what happens is this. The government of a country, like the United States, whatever, has a central bank. And that bank has one job. And that job, well, it basically has one client, which is the government. So it's a private bank, but it works for the government and is responsible to the government. And in our case, the guys who run it are appointed by the government that run the board. But the bank itself is private. And it's only allowed the one client, the United States government. Now, in that system, it has 12 other central banks that it uses in different locations around the country and regions. And what happens is they set things like the rate price on interest rates for bonds, for the U.S. Treasury bonds, because those are the risk-free ones because they're backed by taxes. So you're guaranteed to get your money back and with interest on a U.S. bond. The U.S. never fails to pay those. So they issue those out, or they can buy them back and put more cash back into the system if they want the system, people to spend more and they want inflation to go up, or they want the system to get hotter. If they wanted to cool it down, they buy back more bonds and release less cash, so there's less cash in the system. They sell more bonds and release less cash, so there's less cash in the system, and try to cool inflation that way. That's one way they do it. The other way they do it is they can move the discount rate. The discount rate is the rate at which banks can loan money. So if I'm the central bank and Lacey's buying a car, right? And I say, I'm going to set the discount rate at 1%, right? What that means is the next bank, let's say here, the next central bank with my guy Grogu. So Grogu's bank can loan money, right, out to people. So he can loan $100, but he has to have at least $1 in reserve to cover it. So he can loan it 100 times what he has. But this regulates it so people don't over loan, because banks used to loan out money they didn't have. And it caused recession after recession back in the late 1800s. So that's what he does. So I've just regulated, you can't go more than that, buddy. You can't leverage beyond that. Well, then the next bank can do the same thing, and the next bank can do the same thing. And so they can leverage all this cash. It's just on paper for the most part. And that affects the rate that Lacey's going to pay and whether or not she can get the loan, is the availability of the loan. Because if I raise it to 10%, there's less loans that we can give it out because they've got to keep more cash in reserve to cover potential losses and defaults on loans. Right, so that's one. Those are just a couple things. So that's what the Fed does. But the Fed's ultimate goal is to try and keep inflation level. Usually they want about 2%. 2 to 3 is usually ideal. But 2% is like the sweet spot, for at least for now, for our country. And they want to keep unemployment as low as possible. So that's the two jobs of the Fed. But they're independent from the government. They report to the government, but they don't take orders from the government. And the reason that it's set up that way is because if they had to report to the government and they were a political institution, Lacey is running for office and she's the president or whatever, Speaker of the House, doesn't matter. And right now the economy's not doing really good, right? And inflation's fairly high. But at least he's like, well, I wanted the economy to do better. I want to heat it up. So she can go to the Fed and go, well, look, I'm running for re-election and I'm running on a bad economy. So I need you guys to pump more cash into the system and heat up the economy. Right? So the economy looks better by the time we get to the election. And it looks like I did my job. But it's artificial the way it happened. And what ends up happening is if you're doing that in an already hot economy, you're driving inflation through the roof. And so Lacey gets re-elected and then the economy completely tanks because inflation is way too high. And that's happened in every country where they don't have a central bank that's independent, like the Fed. Every country that's done it that way has fucked it. And that's what he's proposing, is that we don't let them be independent. So here, just to prove my point, in case you guys don't believe me, his proposal is to do this. So this is the IMF. And central bank accountability, transparency, independence, transparency. They talk about the Bank of England. So as a private company, its independence from government was not then correlated. They're talking about the Bank of England. So the legal basis, numerous studies have validated the importance of central banks' independence. Indeed, research based on IMF's database of central bank legislation shows that most nations' central bank laws contain anchors in one form or another for central bank independence. Generally, the laws tend to recognize that if politicians manipulate money policy to bolster their pre-election popularity, like I just said, the prioritization for short-term political gains could invite long-term pain for the economy in the form of higher inflation or even hyperinflation. And if you guys should check out this article if you're interested in it, because they cite examples of when it's happened in the past in other countries that made their Fed political. But that's what Art Laffer is suggesting. Now, will he be Fed chair? I don't know. He's fucking dirt old. I doubt it. I doubt he'll take the job. But that's the kind of guy Trump wants to put in there. That's the kind of guy Trump was taking advice from. A guy who tanked the economy. So, it was known for that. But it goes into this other big thing, and I want to talk about this. So Art Laffer, under Reagan, so President Ronald Reagan, who the conservatives love, was a total douchebag. My opinion, and a fact. So...
But also, I mean, it's not surprising that Trump would want him, because he would want somebody of Reagan's not actually stopping to think or maybe not understanding what a train wreck Reagan was economically. Because the conservatives all love him in terms of Republicans, everybody freaking loves Reagan. So anything he could do that would be making him sound like Reagan, he's probably going to go for. He might not know jack about whether Art Laffer is any good at this job or not, but I think he's just going to go for it for what he will consider the popularity points.
Right. Well, so Art Laffer's deal with Reagan, and I'm going to show you this article. I'm going to sum it up. I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's long. But it's this is the article. It's Ronald Reagan and the Great Social Security Heist. It's fedsmith.com. But this is like a well-known thing in finance and economics. So what happened was Art Laffer comes in, pitches this idea, Greenspan sort of backs it, and Reagan goes with it. And this is the thing. We're going to lower taxes on the rich. And then the rich will have so much money they'll spend more, which was Art Laffer's whole theory, and then it'll trickle down economics. You guys have heard that term. Art Laffer's one of the guys that pushed that under Reagan. And that was his deal. If we lower the taxes on the rich, they'll spend more, and then there'll be more. What do we find? No, they don't. They invest it. Because they only spend money if they think they're going to make it more. Right? You don't go out and just blow money, excess money, and you're a millionaire, multi-millionaire, billionaire. You invest it. And so less money gets pumped into the economy. And it's even worse because even less gets pumped into the economy because now you've lowered taxes so much, there is no fucking revenue for the government. It's all gone way down. So the government can't spend on programs like welfare or a better post office or infrastructure because the government doesn't have enough cash to justify its position. So back when Reagan became president, the government, we didn't really have a national debt. It wasn't really a thing. Reagan created it. So when everybody bitches about the U.S. national debt is 30 trillion now or whatever it is, Reagan's the guy that started that cycle. And what started it was the drop in taxes. The huge drop in taxes. Because under Carter, the previous regime, it had been 70%, up to 90% for the decades before, had been the high marginal tax rate. Reagan dropped it down to like 34, 35. So the rich all of a sudden didn't have to pay tax on any of that money. And their theory was, well, if they don't, then they'll spend more and the government will then make more because people will make more money. It didn't work. And what happened was there was a big...
It's supposed to trickle on down.
Never worked. That Art Laffer's been disproven so many fucking times over the last 40 years. He's a joke. Why is he still on television? And it's always conservative television, but he's a fucking joke. And he's still pushing this theory. In fact, Art Laffer, I'll give you a great example. Kansas, the state of Kansas, actually bought into trickle down just like 5 or 10 years ago. And Art Laffer came in and told them what to do and blah, blah, blah. Kansas basically is bankrupt. That state is trashed. They've dropped so far in the rankings for all the other states as far as economics, education, employment, wages. Kansas is a piece of shit because they listen to Art Laffer. And they keep pushing this guy. Because he'll make the rich richer, but he'll make you a fuck ton poorer. And the rich don't care because they can't be rich unless you're poor. If Lacey and I both have $10 million, neither one of us is rich or poor. And that's all, if we're the only two people on Earth. I mean, that's how it works. So.
It's so weird.
Right, but if Lacey's like, well, I've got $1 million and Duncan's only got 10, and she's like, well, I could give some of my money to Duncan, or we could work something out, but then Duncan's not poor, and I can't manipulate him anymore because he's not desperate. That's why you want it. So she has power over me now because she has more wealth. That's why they push that, and that's what Art Laffer's pushing. So what happened was they did that. They lowered the taxes, tanked the economy, big recession. 83 comes around. Reagan's running for re-election. The economy's in the fucking toilet. And he can't go back and say, well, okay, we fucked up and we were wrong about the tax thing, because then he's not going to get reelected. Because he had to admit that they're mainly responsible for this shit. So what does Reagan do? He goes, we got to find a way, because I told everybody it would generate more revenue. It didn't. Now the economy's in the toilet. We're in a bit of a recession. I'm running into the election and I look like shit. We got to do something to show that, look, no, actually it did work and the economy is doing really well. Right? So how do we do that? Well, we can't raise income tax because then I'd have to admit I was wrong. Right? So this is where Greenspan comes in with his genius idea of, sorry about that. So Greenspan, along comes a spider, Alan Greenspan. And Alan Greenspan goes, okay, well, look, we can't raise income tax. We can raise payroll tax. So they did this thing where it's like, okay, the baby boomers, they knew were going to be a problem for Social Security. Because Social Security, it used to be everybody paid in and then Social Security paid out. And there wasn't like an excess fund in there. The money kind of just came in and out as people worked. But they knew there were going to be more baby boomers than the next generation. So they were like, we got to put more money in there to cover the baby boomers. So we'll just put it in the trust fund, not the general fund, and just save it for when the baby boomers are older. Right? Well, what Greenspan did was said, well, let's raise the payroll tax. So the individuals aren't paying it, the companies are paying it out of their income, but the people don't see it because it's on their W-2s when they get their checks. So they won't really notice as much as raising the income tax. And instead of putting it in the trust fund, we'll put it in the general fund, and then we'll count it as revenue for the government. Even though Social Security is not revenue for the government. It's your and I's money. And it's supposed to be in a separate account. So Reagan then said, yeah, let's do that. And they passed a bill to raise the payroll tax. And Reagan said, oh, I'm really in support of Social Security. When he's not, he tried to privatize. He actually tried to get rid of it entirely when he was president. But then he couldn't because now the only thing that was bailing him out was he got us to pay more into it so he could steal it from that account, put it into the government and count it as revenue so it looked like he actually had accomplished something. Even though he didn't. He just raked you to cover his own ass. Okay? The problem is he did that, and it worked. And he got away with it, and he got reelected. Because nobody knew what happened, and they figured, oh, well, he took care of Social Security, and the government's got more revenue, and, okay, things are looking better now. Because the government can spend more, and he's tried to spend his way out of the problem with the government. Even though he's a Republican, he's against government spending, but he knew he was in deep shit, so they said to spend more and help people out. And then what happened? George H.W. Bush did that, who followed Reagan. And then Clinton did it. All through the 90s. And then Bush Jr. did it. All through the early 2010s. Up until 2008, when Obama became president, and Obama stopped that. And because Obama ran on his platform is we're going to have full government transparency because we didn't know how much the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan cost. We didn't know what was going on. And we just gone through the 2001 recession, the 2002 recession, and the 2008 Great Recession from George Bush. And they all blamed Obama for this, but when Bush was president, he was sitting there going, well, you know, the government was reporting the national debt was whatever, 4 or 5, whatever, trillion dollars, right? And then Obama became president, and within like couple months of him becoming president, all of a sudden it's like 13 trillion or 14 trillion. And everybody's like, well, see, he drove up, the Republicans tried this shit. See, Obama drove up the national debt by like 10 trillion. He didn't. He couldn't, there's no way he could have spent that in 2 months. Because he doesn't control it. Congress controls the spending. What happened was he's the first president to report it on paper to be transparent. And the thing that people talk about, well, the national debt, we got to get that down and da-da-da-da-da and blah, 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 blah. Not really, but the bigger issue of the national debt when they talk about this, and this is why Republicans push to cut Social Security or eliminate Social Security or privatize it, because a huge chunk, like $3 or $4 trillion of the national debt, is money that the government owes Social Security. And if they cut
so if they get rid of it, they don't have to pay it.
They'll lower the debt, and it'll look like they just did something really great. When all they did was steal our money that they're not supposed to have. You should read that article. But that's how Reagan fucked us. And I'm not saying that like Democrats are not guilty of it either. They were. Clinton fucking took advantage of it full force. But it was George W. Bush, the second George W. Bush, who really raided that and used that to pay for all the fucking wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. And that's part of the reason we have the debt problem we have today. And Art Laffer is part of the reason why we have the wage gap and shit we have today. Because of that asshole.
Yep. Yet another reason not to vote for Trump.
Yep.
You can't handle more of Art Laffer.
Nope. It's just a train wreck. But anyway, yeah, weird stuff. We'll just do it next time.
The universe has spoken.
Well, anyway, so, yeah. So that was our show, everybody. I hope you had fun. We did. Lacey, where can everybody catch you?
Republicans gone wild.
Republicans gone wild. Well, I mean, it's been growing ever since the 80s. I mean, it's been bad. Anyway, so now you know everything went to shit under Reagan, and Art Laffer was one of the guys that was involved in it. And the sooner he dies, the better. It's not that I wish him dead. I just want him to not be alive anymore. Him and Larry Kudlow.
Well, you don't have to wish him dead. You can just wish him not working.
Yeah. How about unemployed? How
wish
about
him
that?
very, very retired.
Go fucking
yes,
golf,
wish
Art.
him very, very.
Anyway,
Art, go do some gardening.
Go do some gardening. So, Lacey, where can everybody catch you?
Alrighty, friends, if you're looking for any of my material, you can catch it at mysensewithsense.com. Find information about articles, workshops, courses, etc. You can email us about any of those, or you could send us some clips, some topic requests, or invite yourself on the show by emailing us. And where do they do that, Duncan?
You can email us at gossipfinancead@outlook.com. It's below in the link. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. Please like and subscribe, and we will catch you guys next time. Have a great day.
Yep, apparently the universe said we was done.